Hello, it is Ordinary Muslim Girl, and I am back for the second part of my review on Belief in Allah, Book 1 of the Islamic Creed series. So I'm just finishing it off because I had done the first two chapters, and there were three chapters left. I know I said there were two, there were three chapters left. And so I'm going to go from chapter 3 on. Chapter 3 was basically the beginning of talking about Tawheed. And it talked about kalimat Tawheed, its meaning, its virtues, and the conditions that need to be met for our Tawheed to be accepted. Now, Tawheed basically means believing in one God, and kalimat Tawheed are La ilaha illallah. So these words basically mean there is no God worthy of worship except Allah, and the phrase itself is basically the slogan or the basis of Islam. These are the words that every Muslim hopes is their last words before death. It's the words that you say when you're reverting to Islam, and words that we repeat quite often in our dua and our dhikr on a daily basis. So the book talks about how we say this, how saying this phrase is not enough, that we need to actually put this phrase into practice, but that certain conditions need to be met for us to do this. And it's important that we know their meanings. One of the things that we need to do in order to, some of the conditions that he spoke about, and knowing its meaning, knowing the meaning of Tawheed, having absolute certainty in the statement, which then brings us back to perfecting our aqidah, which we spoke about in the first video. So perfecting our belief. We have to accept what this statement implies and submit to its implication. So it's quite a profound statement, and there is so many of these conditions that talk about, submission to its implication, accepting it, saying it out of sincerity is another one, and having purity of intention when you speak these words. And finally, having love for its meaning and love for those who act upon it, which I think for me talked a lot about like having love for our brothers and sisters in our ummah in Islam. So people that say the words La ilaha illallah have not only have a love for the words itself and how we put them into action, but also love for the people around us that put these words into action. And to sincerely believe in this statement of La ilaha illallah, we have to ensure that in everyday life, we're not actually worshipping anything except Allah. So this includes false idols, false gods, celebrities, money, stones, suns, planets, or obeying anything other than Allah, or not following or not doing what He's commanded. So the statement itself is one of the core tenets of Islam, and it's quite powerful, and we really need to make sure we understand what we're saying it with purity and with sincerity and with certainty, and perfecting our aqidah in saying it. The book then talks about our worship should stem from three things, and they have to work in conjunction with each other. So that's love, fear, and hope. So when we worship, we have to have these three things in check, because it says that if you only have love for Allah and no fear or hope, then you will often fall into sin. If you only have hope with no fear, then you may become too secure against Allah's plans and Allah's will. And finally, if you have fear with no hope and love, then you can often fall into despair and thinking of Allah only in negative terms, or despairing at, what's to come. So you need to have, our worship needs to be a combination of love, fear, and hope in Allah. Then it talks about Tawheed, the opposite of Tawheed, which is Shirk, which is the worst sin committable in Islam. Now, Shirk means associating partners to God. So if we believe that there is only one God and there is none worthy of worship but Him, then the opposite of that would be associating anyone with God, or associating partners with Him. So that makes Shirk the biggest sin, and there is no forgiveness in the Quran. It says that there is no forgiveness for Shirk, except what is less than that. So this is talking about Shirk al-Akbar, which is major Shirk, and then there's also minor Shirk. Major Shirk is unforgivable by Allah. It is when we attribute partners to God. He has no wife, he has no partner, he has no mother, no son, no equal. He's not comparable to false gods, idols, celebrities, stones, planets, all of these things that people kind of worship and revere. Associating anything like that with God would put you out of the fold of Islam. You would no longer be considered Muslim. And then there's Shirk al-Asghar, which is minor shirk. Now this one is, I think, from what I've read in the past, much more dangerous than major shirk because it's a lot more inconspicuous and it's something that you may not even notice you are doing. But minor shirk is more about showing off for worldly gain, for the sake of your ego, or for the sake of created beings, to gain power or control or status. And this is really, I guess, the most important part of Shirk al-Asghar is knowing that your intention really counts. So if you go into something with your intention being pure and doing it for God's sake, then I don't think it falls under Shirk al-Asghar. But if your intention in your heart is wrong or bad or for fame or power or there's any sort of greed, then it would fall under Shirk al-Asghar. And then it goes on to chapter 4. So chapter 4 discusses the history of creed in Islam, and it goes into some detail about how Allah created Adam. So it goes into the history of humanity's creation, how Allah created Adam as an independent creature. He breathed into him of his spirit and caused him to dwell in paradise. It tells the story of how after Iblis tempted Adam, Iblis, which is Satan, tempted Adam to eat from the one tree that was forbidden. Allah then sent him down from paradise to earth as a punishment. But Allah also promised that he would send guidance down in the form of prophets as a reminder to Adam and his progeny in humanity of their responsibility and the reason for their creation, which is to worship and obey their Lord. So even though Adam was sent down, this was a punishment for him, Allah made a promise that he would remind humanity of their purpose. It then talks about the deviations from Tawheed and belief in one God and how it began with the worship of stone idols, and how with each message sent down, God was reminding us of that original message of Tawheed and the importance of coming back to that. All the messages from the prophets and messengers was the same, that Allah created man as a complex and integrated creature for a specific purpose, which is to worship him alone. And finally, the last chapter, which I didn't even realize was a fifth chapter, but the last chapter was quite interesting. It ended on the concepts of God according to other religions or misguided nations, as he puts it in the book. So it gives us a rundown of the idea of God according to the Greeks and Greek mythology. It talks about the concept of God according to the Jews, and it talks about the concept of God according to Arabs who deviated from Tawheed. And it ends, it gives a lot of examples. It has, excerpts and some statements from a lot of the different religious texts, the book of Genesis, Talmud, the Torah, all that stuff. And it basically ends on the importance of remembering the message of one God. So it was quite a very holistic view on belief in Allah, and I wasn't expecting to kind of read what I did out of it. But there was a lot of evidence for and against some things. If we're looking at it as a whole, when we talk about the first part and the second, a lot of examples and evidence from the Quran, a lot of beautiful recitation and hadith, and a lot of dua and excerpts from the Quran, just evidence-based, and really brings it back to how much our belief in Allah is such an internal thing based on our aqidah, based on perfecting our sincerity and our understanding of the image of God in us that we understand. So I really enjoyed it. It was tough. It took me a while to get through, and I'm really grateful that I'm having the opportunity to kind of re-summarize them to myself so that I can understand it better and kind of solidify the learning. I'm hoping to now start book 2, which is The World of the Noble Angels. So this is definitely a lot smaller than book 1. So hopefully it's not as intimidating, and I'm looking forward to it. And if you would like to see the summary of this one when I'm done, then tune in subscribe or don't subscribe, just come back and watch it. But I'm looking forward to doing that one as well. So I will see you then. Bye.